Hi, I'm Debora Coty, author of the historical novel, The Distant Shore. This is based on a true story for ages 8 and up. It's about a young girl's journey of adventure and faith back in 1904, 1905 on Merritt Island, which was very remote and unpeopled for the most part at that time. So I hope you will go back and look up my first video, which took us through the middle of chapter 1. And now we're going to pick up today and get the end of chapter 1. So Emily Palmer has just gotten to the train station at Oak Alley. Emily looked for Aunt Augusta as the conductor carried her trunk down the train steps and placed it on the platform, but she was nowhere to be found. Fast-moving people hurried by left and right, but not one of them was Aunt Augusta. She dragged the trunk half as big as herself to a vacant bench and climbed up. She sat and waited, carefully examining the face of each middle-aged woman as she passed. 5 minutes crawled by. 10, 20. Emily squirmed on the splintered wooden bench in the prickly August heat, fighting back tears. The bright Central Florida noonday sun beamed through the filter of oak leaves, framing the waiting area of Oak Alley's train depot. She could feel sweat beading on her forehead under the sunflower-colored traveling bonnet, and the damp cotton petticoat sticking to her ribs beneath her matching yellow dress. The crowd thinned out, and the ear-splitting whistle shrieked its warning as the train began pulling away from the station. The conductor gave Emily a quizzical backward glance from the metal steps of the train car as he lowered the guardrail. Still no Aunt Augusta. Maybe I've forgotten what she looks like, Emily thought. It's been quite a while since she visited us in Miami. But the image of the rows of tiny wrinkles around Aunt Augusta's mouth, all pointing like little arrows toward the thin lips she kept clenched into a tight line, sprang clearly to mind. No, she was sure she would recognize Aunt Augusta. The sensible, old-fashioned hats she wore atop the tight bun that reminded Emily of a knotted tree root. Aunt Augusta was quick to criticize the ridiculous uselessness of stylish hats nowadays. There was no forgetting the sharp gray eyes that missed nothing, the beak-like nose that seemed too big for her face, and the rapid steps that propelled her slight 5-foot frame ever forward, allowing no room for dilly-dallying from dawdling nieces and nephews. Something about Aunt Augusta always made Emily think of the black wasps that hovered around their papery nest beneath the kitchen windowsill. Dark, leggy creatures with sharp angles and a big stinger. Although small in size, they were enormously scary to have flitting about. Emily's feet, clad in her ivory button-top traveling shoes, dangled above the platform as she shifted positions on the hard depot bench. She untied her bonnet and used it to fan herself. Damp tendrils of thick red hair curled around her ears and stuck to her neck. Where can Aunt Augusta be? She peered through the open depot door at the half-dozen people trying to talk to the ticket agent at once, and twice as many milling about inside the station. Didn't she know I was coming on the morning train? Papa had said everything was arranged. Yes, she remembered every one of Papa's words on that terrible Sunday afternoon he'd made the shocking announcement to the family in the parlor. He'd called everyone together and ordered them to sit down. He stood in the doorway, his face hard and his eyes distant. In 2 weeks, Emily will be leaving. She'll stay with Augusta on the island and help her in whatever way she can during the following school year. All arrangements have been made. There will be no further discussion about it. In the tense silence that followed, Emily's eyes darted first to Mama, who had a pained expression on her face as she held the baby tightly against her chest and rocked back and forth in a chair that wasn't a rocker. Papa fidgeted with his pocket watch, dropping it into his coat pocket and pulling it right back out again. Once, twice, 3 times for good measure. The other children looked stunned. Sarah, the eldest and almost always cheerful, looked as if she was about to cry. The 3 boys stared at each other in surprise, speechless for the first time Emily could remember. She had wanted to scream out, "Why? What terrible thing have I done that you're sending me away?" But she knew silent obedience was expected. No, demanded. So she swallowed hard, pushing down the bitter lump of hurt and fear clogging her throat, and remained mute. Only later in the privacy of Sarah's bedroom could she finally ask the haunting question that echoed in her brain, "Why don't they want me anymore?" "It's not that they don't want you, dearest," Sarah had said. She seemed so grown up for a 14-year-old. She'd enveloped Emily with her soft arms and gently stroked her waist-length red hair with her fingertips, struggling for words. "It's just that there are some things, well, sometimes things happen to you that you can't understand, not until you're older. Even then, it's hard. For now, you must be a brave girl and accept that this is what's best for you." Emily's thoughts were snatched from Sarah's comforting embrace and returned with a jolt to the train depot by 2 large, dusty boots that planted themselves in front of her bench. Her misty eyes followed the vertical line of the black boots all the way up the tall figure to where the glaring sun was blocked by a black hat. The man's eyes were shaded by the wide brim as he looked down from his towering position above her. "You name Palmer? Emmeline Palmer from Miami?" The man spoke slowly, drawling the words with his gravelly voice, pronouncing her hometown, Miami. "I'm Emily." She reached up to wipe away the drop of sweat tickling her nose, or was it a tear? "Your aunt has taken ill. She's recovering at my house. Gather your things and come with me." "Well, what do you mean? What's wrong with Aunt Augusta?" Emily felt that now familiar sensation of hot fear bubbling up from her belly. "This is your trunk?" the man asked, ignoring her question and reaching for the leather handles on the trunk beside the bench. "It's my sister's trunk," Emily answered honestly. His eyes narrowed and he shook his head ever so slightly as he lifted the case and turned to walk away, leaving Emily to jam her bonnet back on her head, collect her traveling bag, and shimmy down from the high bench. The stranger's back was already disappearing around the corner of the building as she gained her footing. "Mama always told me never to go anywhere with strangers," she thought, clutching her satchel to her chest with both hands. I don't know this man. Can I believe him? Is he really taking me to Aunt Augusta?" Her eyes sought out the nearest adults inside the train depot, where business went on as usual, no one paying attention to the goings-on outside. It occurred to her there was nobody on earth to help her if she did indeed need help on that fine summer morning. Nobody at all. Emily's heart ached for Mama. "What's keeping you, girl?" boomed a deep voice attached to no face that Emily could see. She knew it belonged to the man who had taken the trunk containing her every possession. Although she shook all over, she saw no other choice but to follow him. "If you're there, God, please help me," she whispered toward heaven as her feet found wings and she flew around the building toward the frightening unknown. Thank you for joining me. That was the end of the first chapter of The Distant Shore. If I hear from you and if you enjoy that, please do contact me via Facebook or my website, deboracoty.com, and tell me that you'd like to hear more I would be more than happy to keep reading, but I do need to hear from you to know if you want me to. Thank you so much. May your blessings outweigh your stressing.